Hola, hola, welcome back. In our last episode, we looked into the power of intuition, how to listen to that quiet inner voice that guides us. Today, we're exploring the art of letting go. Letting go can sound simple in theory, but we all know it can be incredibly challenging. Whether it's releasing old habits, emotional baggage, or physical clutter, letting go is an essential part of moving forward. In this episode, we'll unpack why letting go is so important, the obstacles that make it difficult, and some practical steps you can take to start releasing what no longer serves you. This episode builds directly on the intuition theme, highlighting how letting go is a natural step after tuning into inner guidance. I'm Marta, your host, and this is Spiritcraft, the podcast to nurture your soul and unleash the magic within. Let's get started. I want to preface this episode by saying that as much research and reading I have done on this subject from my personal journey and experience, but also to complement my spiritual life coaching services, I am not a psychologist or a psychiatrist. When we talk about letting go, there are some psychological effects that might take place, but I am not able to diagnose them, so bear that in mind. As usual, I will link some resources in the show notes, and I encourage you to read more on the subject or on any subject that we discuss here, if it interests you. Many people see letting go as just forgetting about the past, suppressing feelings, letting others walk all over you, and similar behaviors. And this couldn't be farther from the truth. Letting go is about reclaiming your freedom, mental and emotional, so that you can focus on the things you can control and release attachments that are weighing you down. As humans, we naturally tend to hold on to things, even when they're not good for us, because they become part of our identity. So if you remember in last week's episode when I said our brains use shortcuts to be able to respond quickly and that some of those shortcuts sometimes fail us, our identity can act in the same way. The way we see ourselves is not only quite resistant to change, but also the perception we have of our current selves based on how we view our past selves and how we would like our future selves to look. That might have been a lot, so let me explain with an example from my own experience. Growing up, I wasn't very good at gym class. I couldn't do press-ups and I hated running. Therefore, I created this image of myself as an unfit person. I wasn't very sporty and I saw myself more as a nerd, I guess. As an adult, whenever I tried to exercise, I always struggled a lot and that would reinforce my self-image of not being athletic. I then became better through proper training, a lot of patience and self-compassion, and I ended up becoming a personal trainer, as you know. I then decided I wanted to help others who might have had the same experience I had growing up. I wanted to help them realize that exercise and fitness were actually possible. However, I still saw myself as not fit, not athletic kind of personal trainer, especially when comparing myself to other trainers around me. Currently, I don't exercise as much as I did as a personal trainer, but funnily enough, I still see myself as a fitness person. My self-image changed sometime along the way, and now I see myself as my past self, what I used to be. I am also aspirational, so I see myself in a year's time as a fit person too, able to run a half marathon again or do HIIT classes and all of that, despite the fact that currently a power walk leaves me breathless. If you were to ask me how I see myself, I would say I am a fit person. It's part of my identity. The fact that these self-images don't want to change as much, it might be okay, especially if that self-image or self-schemas are positive. Once we identify with a trait, we are more likely to act as and embody aspects of that trait. If I consider myself a healthy and fit person, I am more likely to go out on walks, try to eat healthy, try out workouts, and so on. We attempt to maintain that image of ourselves. We will focus on what supports our self-image and ignore what doesn't. In a normal week, I am probably more often than not unable to run or even walk fast without getting out of breath. But even if I only manage to go out for one short run, that will reinforce my view of being fit and healthy. So my brain will use it to reinforce that view of myself. Again, I'm not a psychologist, so please bear with me if what I say is not 100% correct or technical. It's just surface level information so we can understand how letting go works and why it can be difficult. Of course, we can always change the way we view ourselves, but this doesn't just happen. We evaluate our experiences, past and present, and our aspirations, and then we come up with an answer to the question, who am I? It happened to me at some point, going from being unable to run to catch a bus to a personal trainer. Some changes can almost be unnoticeable, and we will adapt with no issues, while others can bring an identity crisis with them. In my case, once my health issues stopped me from being able to teach high-intensity classes and do everything a PT is supposed to do, this could have led to a who am I then if I am not this anymore? Our self-image isn't fixed, it's fluid and can evolve with our experiences, sometimes without us even noticing. And this fluidity is what makes letting go possible, even when it feels hard. By recognizing that flexibility in how we see ourselves, we can start to release the old stories and identities that no longer align with who we want to be. As you can imagine, once we become sure of the things that identify us and make us who we are, we might be reluctant to part with them, prompting us to reassess our identity and self-image. Take a moment and think about this. How do you see yourself? How would you describe yourself? Choose a few words. We don't need a long essay at this point. And bear in mind that we are not one-dimensional either. One can be sporty, a foodie, artistic, reliable, fun. But let's not dive too deep right now. Once you've come up with a few words that describe you, I want you to have a quick think about whether they influence how you see the world around you and how you act. And feel free to pause the episode for a moment if you need it. If you see yourself as reliable, you will be more likely to ensure that you meet deadlines and can answer the phone when someone needs your help. If you're a foodie, you might be more inclined to cook at home or go out to nice restaurants. These are just brief examples because your experiences are going to be different. And this also applies to things we own. We use the stuff that we have to form our identity. And if you don't believe me, I just want you to think of any of these. Pepsi or Coke, Apple or Android, Nike or Adidas, or even cats or dogs. We all have parts of our world that we use as part of our identity and are reluctant to let go of. Whether it's keeping our high school notebooks or maintaining toxic relationships, we all have something in our lives that we insist on keeping. And that last example might have shocked you. Why would anyone want to keep themselves in a toxic relationship? First of all, let me remind you that letting go is a long process that involves many different aspects of our personality, psychology, and so on. It is not easy. Even when we know something is bad for us, we might still hold on to it. But why? It's usually fear. Yes, one of the biggest barriers to letting go is fear. Fear of the unknown, fear of change, or even fear of who we might become without these familiar weights that are holding us back. We get so used to our comfort zones, even when they're not comfortable at all. Remember that what you hold on to will shape your identity. A relationship, a job, or even a long-standing belief can become so intertwined with who we are that letting go feels like losing a piece of ourselves. Many women, for example, grow up being someone's daughter. They then get married, maybe, and become someone's wife. Some might end up being someone's mom. When that child grows up and leaves to live their life, or if the marriage breaks up, these women now have to find themselves, letting go of the identity they might have held for many years and questioning who they are if they're not someone's mom or someone's wife. And I know it's a stereotypical example, but it's one that's still very much present in many women's lives. I have one for men as well. When men retire or lose their jobs, especially older generations, they might become lost not knowing who they are anymore. So even when there's a toxic relationship of any kind, not just romantic, it can be very difficult to separate that from our identity. If we are the reliable person, for example, we might not want to say no because we don't know how to set healthy boundaries at work. We might not want to be seen as unhelpful or selfish. Letting go is being able to face that fear, not to remove the feeling or to ignore it, but to acknowledge it, to recognize that the situation is important and maybe life-changing, and then work on releasing it so that we can free up that space to honor ourselves and our journey. When we let go, we allow new experiences to enter our lives, and we grow and expand our worlds. As humans, we're pre-programmed to avoid danger and to remember negative experiences so that we can prevent them in the future. Remember, our brains like shortcuts. Overcoming that fear of the unknown is against all of this programming, even though we go through it every day. And every day we survive it and we expand our world just a bit more. For example, my friend's daughter has started a new school, and of course he was terrified on the first day. What if they don't like me? What if they're mean to me? What if I don't make any friends? In her already forming self-image, she is this small person who goes to a specific school and is good at some activities and bad at others. And changing schools is a terrifying experience. However, on the other side of that coin, as I've said, our world expands. We make new friends, explore new places, and have a lot of fun playing with other children. And I'm being told that so far she's loving her new school and she's having a lot of fun. Fear can be one of the most common blocks for letting go, but it's not the only one. Attachment and guilt are not far behind. We become attached to things, people, situations, and even emotions. We become identified by them. For example, someone who sees themselves as always there for others might end up putting everyone's needs before theirs, ending up self-sacrificing. A person who identifies as such might feel extremely uncomfortable putting their own needs first. At least until their needs have been ignored for so long that other issues arise, such as mental health issues, or the person can't go on anymore and ends up with anger and resentment towards those around them. We might be reluctant to let go of a person who has done much for us because we might feel guilty about it, even if this person is now terrible to us. Holding on to things can negatively affect us. Not only do we become stagnant and unable to move forward, but maintaining a situation or relationship that is causing us harm can lead to energy drain. And I am guilty of this. I've always found it difficult to move on or to leave negative thoughts and situations behind for fear of what might happen next, whether it was jobs, relationships, friendships, or patterns. I've endured holding on to them for various reasons of varying legitimacy until I haven't been able to go on. My health might have suffered or my self-esteem plummeted. But let me be very clear here. Not being able to let go of something does not mean you are a failure. Even when we think we have overcome something, later in life, something might happen that will trigger that emotion, that automatic response, and that's okay. Letting go is not about moving on without any regard for what's happened. It's not forgetting or ignoring the past. It's not even a full blank slate to start again. Letting go is simply giving our own energy and mental health the priority and attention they need so we can heal our own wounds, even if this means never getting an apology, for example. We may not decide to forget about someone or stop loving them, but we recognize that there's more to it than love. Sometimes we let go so we don't lose ourselves. Sometimes we let go so we let others become themselves. It's about understanding that whatever happened had a cause, a storyline, and maybe an ending. Whether we or the other person are to blame is irrelevant. We understand that it happened and now it's time to keep living. Now, another caveat here. Trauma or violence might shape people's identity, while others might not let whatever happened to them define them. Letting go does not mean forgiving the perpetrator of the abuse. Letting go is finding the tools and strategies to ensure that we heal, that we move forward, and that we can come back from that traumatic experience to live the life we are meant to live on our own terms. Let's take a moment to consider why letting go is so beneficial. It's not about removing negative aspects from our lives. It's about creating space for positive change. When we hold on to old emotions, beliefs, or even physical items that no longer serve us, we end up cluttering our mental and emotional space, even the physical space, leaving little room for new opportunities. So letting go is not about losing, it's about gaining the freedom to grow, explore new paths, and connect more deeply with ourselves and others. Some of the key benefits you might experience when you begin to let go are things like emotional freedom, because letting go reduces the mental clutter that keeps us tied to the past, allowing us to experience more peace and less anxiety. We can also maybe have improved relationships because we create that space for healthier connections with others by releasing those old grudges or even expectations. It also leads to personal growth. because letting go of limiting beliefs opens up new opportunities for self-discovery and personal empowerment. So how can we start to let go? I'm going to explore these techniques in a blog post this weekend. And in that post, I'll share specific journaling prompts, a calming meditation, and a few simple rituals for decluttering. So in the meantime, we can explore a few ways that you can start letting go today. And as we explore these techniques, remember that letting go is a process. It's about taking small, consistent steps, honoring your journey. So let's look at some simple ways to start creating that freedom. One effective approach is through mindset shifts. Remind yourself that holding on to negative emotions or situations only hurts you in the long run. Try redirecting your thoughts towards what you can change. And I know it's easier said than done. But one way to do this is to create positive mantras that oppose those negative thoughts. For example, when we think, I've been made redundant and this is scary, what am I going to do next? And so on. We can try to reframe it in a more positive way. This is the opportunity I needed to dive headfirst into personal training and change career. And this is a true story, by the way, based on my own experience. You won't be surprised by now that I'm also going to recommend journaling. I think I have mentioned journaling in every single episode of this podcast. With journaling, you can write down what you're holding on to and then consciously commit to releasing those thoughts. Self-care and compassion, by the way, are essential during this process because you want to give yourself space to learn as you go. You will get some things right and you will relapse into old patterns. And it's all part of the process. Give yourself permission to talk about it too. When doing this and working to identify what we're holding on to and why, like with shadow work, certain emotions might come to the surface. So be gentle with yourself and try not to ignore or block the negative feelings that might come up. Ensure you have a caring support system to help you on that journey and seek professional help. When you're trying to let go of someone, remember that the other person might never apologize, but that should not affect your ability to forgive. They're separate. It might mean you must distance yourself from them, and that's okay. There are many rituals that you can do to help you release what no longer serves you, from writing your worries on paper and burning them as a symbolic act of release, to cord-cutting ceremonies, as well as burning your worries if you feel connected to nature. The elements of water and air are also great for letting go. Feeling the flow of water of a stream or a shower on your body can help visualize the emotions being washed away. I, for example, really enjoy windy days when I need to get rid of stagnant energy or negative patterns. And remember, once again, letting go doesn't happen overnight. It's an ongoing practice of choosing to release and move forward, one step at a time. Also, developing self-awareness is critical, because the more conscious and intentional we are, the better equipped we are to deal with the events of our lives and move on in a healthy way. This weekend, once again, you will find a blog post with different techniques and practical methods to help you let go. Remember, I will share journaling prompts, a meditation, and some rituals for decluttering. This episode might have been a bit denser than usual, and it might have caused you to look inside yourself and start recognizing some patterns or situations that you've been holding on to. But remember, do not rush through the process. Understanding how we identify ourselves and its effect on letting go is key if we want to identify the correct strategies for releasing what we want to let go of. Remember that holding on to things that don't serve us anymore can affect our mental health, our behaviors, and our energy levels. And letting go of them can make space for new experiences and growth. All in all, this is a complex process, and each person will deal with it differently. Some people might seem to be able to forgive and forget right away, while others might need time to get through difficult times. But as always, I am here to help guide you through your personal journey. So feel free to contact me with any questions you might have via email at podcast@spanishbruja.com, on the website's contact form, or on social media. Thank you for joining me on this episode about letting go. Remember, this isn't a one-time event, it's a continuous practice. As you go through your week, I encourage you to take small steps to release what no longer serves you. One last reminder, check the blog for additional resources and techniques to support your process. And if you have any questions or want to share your experience, again, I'm here for you. Next week, we're going to be diving into embracing change. So be sure to tune in for more insights and inspiration. But until then, keep nurturing your soul, one mindful moment at a time.